So, what would you want to know?
No, I mean, I kind of got an understanding. I've listened for a couple of times now about whether or not it's a good idea, bad idea. It's just really a matter of where you feel Tesla should not be. I really don't have any questions. You're just going to play it by ear and hopefully make the best decisions for you and your financial situation.
Thank you. We have AI driver on the speaker board, so let's start with FSD. So AI driver yesterday stated that. So I said that Tesla introducing robotaxis, dozens or hundreds of robotaxis in one city wouldn't be material to the stock, and then I clarified that with it wouldn't be material to Tesla's bottom line fundamentals. And AI driver went out there and tweeted out that I said it wouldn't be material to the stock, and
Sorry, were those not your actual words?
ignoring the context I added later in the space. So now he set the stage for being able to dunk on me if the stock does go up 10-20%, which obviously I can't predict in the shorter term what would happen. But here's at the top of our screens AI driver's tweet from yesterday, seen by 60,000 people, liked 600 times, reposted dozens of times, and now 60,000 people think that I said it's not going to be material to the stock, which is what I said, but I clarified saying it's not going to be material to the bottom line. But this is the way
Can
Twitter
you clarify
goes.
the difference between those statements then?
Yeah, bottom line is profits. Stock has a lot of other different factors on top of fundamentals, whether it can be hype, can be PE ratios, can be macro, can be somebody selling stock because somebody died. So those are obviously very different terms, but it is what it is. This is the way Twitter works. Lots of misinformation and misunderstanding. Anyway, so which one would you rather talk, stock or the bottom line?
Full self-driving.
Okay, but the impact on the stock or the bottom line?
I don't know. I was under the impression yesterday we were talking about your short position. So whether that means the stock or the bottom line, like I don't know what would be worse for you, but like my statements yesterday came out of genuine concern and pushing you to rather buy puts than short the stock because the most you can make from your short position is what's the stock right now, $330 per share or something. You can lose an infinite amount, and I'm genuinely scared for you. You may make some money, and I really hope you do, but puts are a way better option.
Well, first of all, I didn't specify which one I did, whether I outright shorted the stock or bought put options or call options or bought an ETF that is inverse or even
You're
a
not
levered
being genuine, man. We can take a look at your post right now, but you specifically said that you shorted the stock. So, I mean, I don't know. We can talk about something else if you want. That's fine. Let's just talk about full self-driving, but you got to be genuine in what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, one of the reasons why I don't specify these things, like I may have said short the stock and whatever, but one of the reasons is because it changes. Like, I don't have to report to everybody what I exactly do at what strike price, what expiration date, at what, for how long. The reason why I let everyone know that I have a short position in some form or another is because this is a Tesla live space, and I want people to be aware of the bias, which I did not have to do. Even if I am a financial advisor that is a fund managing billions of dollars, whatever, I don't have to disclose my short positions. So instead of people saying, "Well, thank you for letting us know that you had this position," which you didn't have to do, people are begging for more information. And obviously, this begging will not stop, even if I give them more information, because the purpose is to just paint me as not being open. It's more character assassination than anything else.
I just think you have to see how it looks from the outside. Your entire space was just Tesla Live, and you've been speaking so positively about it for years at this point, and then like literally within a couple of week period, you've completely flip-flopped. And I think that
That's not true. False.
Okay.
False. Because if you look at the people who were talking about my position in Tesla, people actually said I shorted Tesla back in early 2021, which was also false. So you're making false statements by saying that I spoke positively about Tesla for years and years, and in 2 weeks I switched. You just
I'm
haven't been
telling
part
you
of this.
from my perspective, because you know how often I'm here. That's how often I get to talk to you. And the last 3 or 4 times I've been here, which is pretty much the entire time I've been on this space, you've talked very, very positively. I haven't heard you talk negatively at all, just the other speakers on the board. So
Well,
that's
maybe that's
my
because
perspective. I don't listen to
maybe
everything.
that's because you come only a couple of times.
Very true.
And you're also not noting that I think in the longer term, Tesla will prevail among, above all other automakers, which I also tweeted out today, which you obviously didn't see because you unfollowed me. And maybe just you should step back and think about the limitations of your perspective of my opinions, because you're just kind of taking, a small sample size. And I really think that part of this. I really think that part of the reason why you're kind the reason why you're kind of getting this strong reaction here is because of your previous involvement with Tesla in there as an employee. And I'm fixing the audio. Thank you, Hustle Town. I'm fixing the audio on YouTube now.
Money. Like short sellers in the long run never make money. Look at all the famous ones, right?
Yeah,
like Michael Burry, Jim Chanos. Jim Chanos lost $500 million.
I didn't even notice you said PTSD yesterday. PTSD is my view of your psychological state right now.
All right, I won't tell you what I think of your psychological state.
Okay. So you were working at Tesla, you mentioned, and you clearly were reading these short analyses. And you said yesterday that this reminds me of my time at Tesla and when people were shorting the stock, and I cannot definitely understand as an employee when you're working really hard and you're putting all these hours at Tesla, and other people outside the company aren't appreciating betting against the company and spreading misinformation. The one thing I am not doing today is spread misinformation. Do you agree with that?
No, what I meant by that, I wasn't looking at the short thesis or whatever. I was just watching the news and seeing things be built around me, and Tesla like building the impossible, what everybody was saying wasn't going to be built in the news, and like we're seeing it happen right in front of our eyes. And it wasn't like insider information or anything. Everybody had information of this, but yet there was a completely different picture being painted online about what was happening. And I think we're in a very similar situation with full self-driving right now, where we're seeing the impossible happen right in front of our eyes. And yet, we have people that have just flip-flopped. And that's honestly why I unfollowed you, is because you know too much about full self-driving to make the statement that you did yesterday. And in my opinion,
which is what? What's the statement?
The one that I posted that you began this space with.
Okay. Yeah, man. Part of the reason,
I would love to explain to you why Tesla is
reason,
way different than Waymo, but I don't have to, because you already know.
Yeah, I do. But part of the reason why I respect you and your YouTube channel, I watched it so many times. I've shared so many of your links with my followers and video clips from it, is because I think that you are data oriented and you're very methodical about things. So the only reason why I can, how I can explain what I'm seeing right now, which is just complete disregard what I exactly said, context and attention to detail, is because you have PTSD from your time at Tesla with the short sellers. That's the only. But I'm willing to talk about it and in the space. And if you have any questions, but I highly encourage you not put words in my mouth. But let's go to Drew Soul for a second. Drew, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. I think a lot of people get confused about someone claiming to be short. That just means that they may not agree with. I mean, I don't want to speak on your behalf, Yaman, but sometimes people can be bullish of the thesis of the company, but they disagree with the current price of the stock. So they feel that there could be a reset or a correction in the short term, but not necessarily be bearish on the company. So there's different ways to be short, like Yelman had mentioned. You can sell covered calls, you can buy puts. Obviously, the most damaging, and we've probably seen it with short sellers for Tesla and of course GameStop, where there's that infinite risk. But you can disagree with the current stock price, but still be bullish on the company. So I think maybe, I mean, I don't know if Yaman is maybe playing the short term. That's his own prerogative. But I think a lot of people get offended with the term short, thinking that you're actually shorting the company, thinking that you want it to fail, but it could be just a short term play.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly correct.
So the
And this
discussion
is
we're having
and the
yesterday,
reason is
summarize
because
real quick.
just 1 second. The reason is because there has been a lot of misinformation spread about short selling in recent years. I don't agree with 90% of positions people have, thoughts they have about short sellers. I think shorting plays an important role in the markets. It's legal in the US. There are countries where it's illegal, but in the US, they play an important role. What is illegal is to short and distort. Okay, so if you short a stock and spread misinformation about a company, knowing there's misinformation, then you're in an illegal position. If you're just shorting a stock, that's part of the markets. And I think it's an important role in the markets as well. Go ahead, AI driver.
No, I was just kind of bringing up why I had the reaction yesterday, because I think if you had a post saying, I think Tesla is overvalued right now. I think that this guy's information that he's giving me, it's not going to be possible to train full self-driving to be driverless in time for their for when they want to deploy it, yada yada yada. That would be a much more reasonable position, in my opinion. But the posts that I've seen from you don't have anything of substance. It's all just, I'm shorting Tesla. Oh, it's going up. I'm going to increase my short position by 10x. There's no valuable information there, and it just sounds like you're baiting reactions to me.
Well, here's the problem. I don't control what you see. Okay. I post and I have posted more color on why I'm shorting. And what you see depends on what the algorithm shows you. And there are many reasons why you might see some of my posts and not most of my posts. First of all, being you no longer follow. But if you want to see all of my posts, you can turn on notifications. Or you can come to the space and ask questions before jumping to conclusion that I'm trying to solicit engagement.
You remember what happened when I asked a question yesterday, and you yelled at me like a sad dog for not being in here often enough to know the answers?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't remember. What's the question?
There is no question. I'm just telling you what happened yesterday. I asked the questions, and you got mad at me for asking them.
Okay, do you have any more questions?
No, I want to talk about full self-driving in Waymo.
Okay, go ahead.
No, this was you. Like the statement that I made yesterday, from the words that are coming out of your mouth, like that's what I want to talk about. But it's apparent to me now that you don't believe what you said.
Yeah, also false. But go ahead. What do you like? You know what? Let me go to bitter melon. Bitter melon.
Yeah. I just want to bring everything back to the fact. So, Yaman, you're saying that you are shorting the stock based on the FSD tracker by Elias Martinez. Is that correct? That's one of your key pieces of
That's
evidence?
one reason. Yeah.
Okay. How many responses, or what percentage of FSD users does that tracker represent?
Very small. I would guess maybe like a percent or two.
Okay. I think we should ask machine if that's significant, if that's statistically significant enough to make data-driven decisions on.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, and as I mentioned many times here and in my post, it is not perfect and it's not statistically perfect either. But as Wes also mentioned here yesterday or the day before, it is the best thing we have outside of what Tesla has in house. And Tesla has chosen to not share, except for a couple of vague statements from Elon. And so I feel comfortable that the FSD community tracker is good enough for me to at least put some partial credence as a part of a mosaic that's a larger that leads to a larger decision. Anything else, Bittermelon?
Yeah, that's my only question for now. Thank you.
Okay, AI drivers. So what do you think about FSD versus Waymo?
FSD is better.
Okay, and you think that's why? I mean, I agree with that statement. Is that it? So we agree then. I bet you and I agree on more things than you realize. I would say that you and I agree on most things when it comes to Tesla.
No, but in regards to yesterday, you said the reason why it wouldn't be material is because Waymo already has driverless cars operating in all these cities, and they're not profitable, not even close.
Yeah.
That's the discussion.
Okay. And you think Tesla will be profitable when they start the robotaxi service in a couple of cities, right?
I don't know about profitability, but I have a feeling shorts will be burned. Whether or not the extra cents per mile goes into Tesla's bottom line or whatever, it won't make a difference. Like if they prove that it's possible in one city, that means it's immediately possible in basically any other city they declare is safe. It's not like Waymo that works like an NPC out of a video game. Like there's pretty much no difference besides being in the real world and a digital world from like an NPC at a Grand Theft Auto and a Waymo. You can't drop a Waymo off at anybody. Like 99.9% of people, if you dropped a Waymo in front of their house, it would not be able to move under its own power 1 inch.
Yeah. I agree with you. I think if Tesla demonstrates in a couple of cities that the technology works and it's adopted well, but I think still the widespread adoption of Tesla robotaxis will take years, and we won't know until that point how profitable the business will be. And I don't think the stock market will give much credit to Tesla, even if it starts in 1 or 2 cities, because of that reason.
So you think a driverless Tesla running full self-driving is already priced in right now?
I think there's some value priced in the stock above and beyond Tesla Automotive and Tesla Energy today. Yeah, so if you look at, so the way I kind of ask people that question is, what do you assign to Tesla Automotive? How much value do you assign to Tesla Automotive? And how much value do you assign to Tesla Energy? And how much value you assign to the rest of the company? And then we dig into it depending on their answers. So if they say something like, well, Tesla Automotive alone is worth $200 billion and Tesla Energy alone justifies the rest of it, then I would dig into their assumptions in Tesla Energy. And that would be around, capacity of these factories, how the profitability of the mega packs, and then we might go into power walls or software services on Tesla Energy, and that's kind of how I take it. So I'll get back to you with those discussions, with those questions after Luce. Luce?
Yeah, so basically, so if AI driver remembers, whenever V12 was released, which was the first FSD on neural networks, so if he remembers, the stock went down, I don't remember perfectly, but after that version was released, there was a few months period in which the stock was extremely low. And so if you think that the AI play is not priced in any way, and that whenever they are going to release the robotaxi in a city, then the stock is going to increase. I just want you to remember that the stock doubled basically on AI right now, because the auto sector is basically is basically going down or staying the same. So yeah, so you cannot really say the shorts will be burned when there is this much anticipation on AI already pressed in.
Okay, so AI driver, how much value do you assign to Tesla Automotive versus Tesla Energy versus future non-automotive and non-energy products?
All the value, all of it.
But so today, what's the market cap of the company?
I don't even know, man. Like I said, like I don't dive deep
But
into
see,
all this. The only
right
thing that I
there,
care
right
about is
there, you lost it. Right there.
well, I'm just telling you from what I saw. Like when I was working in production, I heard all the experts talking about Tesla production and how wrong they are, right? I am sitting here testing full self-driving, listening to all the experts and how wrong they are again. I don't know, like this isn't my thing. You're all about the stocks and this and sheets and numbers. Like I don't care, man. I really don't. I just look at full self-driving and the stuff that I'm interested in.
Okay. So your reasoning from analogy, do you agree?
I would say that I'm reasoning from experience, whether that be production, when production was the talk of Tesla stock and now it's full self-driving. I feel like I'm in a pretty good situation to know.
Yeah. Reasoning by analogy and reasoning from experience is the same exact thing.
Well, you know what they say about history, man.
Yeah. And you may be right. Like, I'm not saying I have all the answers. I've been proven wrong before when I said Tesla will triple in 2022. But what I'm interested in with you is reasoning from first principles, which means digging layer by layer by layer by layer into the components of Tesla valuation. I want to understand your assumptions, etc. Now, if I were you, the way I would word what you just said is it doesn't matter what Tesla is producing and selling today. FSD opportunity is so high that any sort of discussion around what Tesla is producing and selling today will make it irrelevant. Like Optimus opportunity, for example, is so great that whatever the price of Tesla is today, whatever the value you assign to Tesla Automotive and Tesla Energy today, will pale in comparison. Is that what you're saying?
I think that you believe that too. I truly do.
No, I don't. I do not believe that.
You've started the space saying that in the long-term prospects, you understand that they're going to blow everybody else out of the water, blah 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 blah. Like you
I
started
said
by saying that.
prevail. I said will
Okay.
prevail.
Well, then what's the difference from what you just said? Because that's the complete opposite.
That's a great question. Tesla can still prevail over other automakers, but end up not being worth trillions of dollars that you're expecting. So this idea of price versus value is critical to understand. So Tesla today is priced $1.1 trillion. Okay, that is the market cap of Tesla's stock, which is share price times all the shares outstanding is $1.1 trillion. Now, if I ask Luce, who sold all of his shares a few weeks ago, he didn't short it, but Luce and I share a very similar kind of, I guess, overall arching point that Tesla in the longer term will be more valuable than it is today. But right now, the price just went ahead of the value. But if I ask Luce, what do you assign to Tesla Automotive? He would be able to answer that question. If I ask ACDC, who is in the audience, what do you assign to Tesla Automotive? What do you assign to Tesla Energy? He would be able to answer those questions.
Yeah,
And
I'm
I think
sure if
that's
you
important.
asked all the professionals, I'm sure if you asked Jim Chanos all the reasons he shorted Tesla stock, he could give you a list of 100 really good reasons that I could not even come up with. But you know, he lost $500 million doing it, and he's a really smart guy. You know, like shorting. I mean, I'm not telling anybody how to live their lives. I was worried specifically about you because, like, we've had our differences, but we've had a few laughs, man. Like, I'm genuinely concerned for you, and like, I don't know. I don't know what to say, man. I really don't. I hope that you're not short the way I think you're short, because that could financially ruin you. And that's all I wanted to tell you. And those are the messages I sent you right after we got off of this space, because a lot of people have lost everything from that. And you know, being in the spaces before, I know you put a monetary value on everything. You literally called out your Patreon supporters by name for canceling their memberships. Like, people who, when money's not tight, they don't do that type of stuff. So like, I'm genuinely worried.
Okay. Well, I'm interested in more of a fundamental discussion. So you said
Yeah, I don't
yesterday.
have one for you. I'm here to talk about full self-driving because that's one thing I'm really good at talking about. I have no idea about the other sides of the business.
Okay. So when do you expect Tesla to roll out thousands of robotaxis?
Well, I'd say as soon as driverless works well enough in a single city, it'll already be done before the first cybercab rolls off the line.
Okay, so you're saying the existing fleet will be able to become robotaxiable.
Yeah, hardware for Model 3, Model Y, as stated from Tesla.
Okay. What gives you that confidence?
The progress that I've seen from the first version from end to end to where we are now.
Okay. What % of the current code is neural networks, do you think?
Oh, see, I have no idea. I'm a butt in a seat. That's all I am, man. I can just tell you my experiences. Like, I've talked to a few of the engineers, but they wouldn't go into specific detail with me. But I would say a lot of it.
Okay. Luce, so AI driver says that Model 3 and Model Y with hardware 4 will be robotaxiable. What do you think?
So hardware 3, I will forget about it. I think it's been forgot by Tesla as well. So regarding hardware 4, there is a chance they will be able to integrate it in a geo-fenced application in some city. Now, I don't know if AI drivers knows it, but the other day we had Robert Scoble, and in his opinions, in those cities they want to implement robotaxis, they are basically mapping down the city and the garages similar to Waymo. So obviously the robotaxi and the vision only implementation is better for scaling. But as we are seeing right now in 2025, Tesla will have a similar application to Waymo and possibly with hardware 4. Now, I don't think that going forward, hardware 4 will be capable of unsupervised FSD beyond those areas. I don't think so.
So, Luce, you think that it's possible hardware 4 is robotaxiable, is that right?
No, I think it's not possible beside those areas.
Besides those cities, okay.
Yeah, beside those geofenced applications in those few cities, they are going to test it. Beyond those, no.
In AI driver, you think Teslas with hardware 4 are robotaxiable beyond those couple of cities?
I think once they get it working in those cities, and it's not like full self-driving is just going to disappear everywhere else. All they're going to have to look at is the people using full self-driving and all the cities around, and they can slowly just expand that geofence. And I believe that's what's going to happen. They're going to start in the cities and expand and expand and expand away from them once they can prove that it's safer, because they have that data.
Okay. So I'm going to get back to more questions, but let's go to Highland. Highland?
Hey there, just a quick question. I don't know if anyone or if the research or survey exists to find out what percentage of current hardware 3 and or hardware 4 owners, or even just overall Tesla owners, are even interested in having their current Tesla vehicles be used for robotaxi. I mean, I'm personally pretty optimistic. I mean, I believe Kathy Wood, it's all very speculative, whatever, for the future of robotaxi, but I'm pretty pessimistic or skeptical that a material percentage of current owners would be interested in having their Tesla that they probably bought for personal use driving around and strangers using it and whatnot. So does anyone know if that research exists?
AI driver?
I'm not aware of any research. I can tell you firsthand that I'm not going to be putting my car out there, maybe for a video or something, but I wouldn't consistently be putting my car out there personally.
Okay, so AI driver essentially is saying, Highland, that it doesn't matter what percent put it in. If just a few people put it in and to demonstrate that this technology is capable of being robotaxiable, then it's going to be material to the stock and the company's bottom line. Is that
Even
fair?
even if half of 1% of people decide to do it, I think the town would be flooded with robo taxis wherever it is.
Okay. And okay, interesting. Highland, what do you think?
I think stock prices are a funny thing. I mean, they're inherently based on just people's forward-looking ethereal sentiment about the possibility, right? So, on one hand, I kind of agree in the optimistic view of the future for Tesla based on all of this crazy upside from Optimist and Robotaxi. But it's just so unquantifiable. Like, I think I applaud your attempts at really being analytical about us, figuring out, slicing and dicing the current value. I used to do that kind of thing myself, and ultimately concluded it was a fool's errand. You can be as precise as you want, but at the end of the day, stock prices are purely emotional based on what people choose to buy and sell and whatnot, right? So personally, I don't think you're going to see many people taking their $100,000 to $200,000 Tesla vehicles and letting strangers ride around in them. But that doesn't diminish my belief in this future potential. And it's funny hearing Elon do his back of the napkin math. It's like, yeah, I think we'll make, 2 Optimus robots for every human on Earth, and that's this big of a business, and therefore we're worth this. And it's like, you know what? From all of my background doing modeling and forecasting, which I actually used to do a lot of in a prior life working in the wireless world, sometimes over sophistication of modeling tricks yourself into thinking it's more accurate. So if these futures that he believes he can build at some point in the future come true, then the optimistic bull case is going to come around sooner or later. The big variable is time, and he's usually not accurate on that one, but eventually they seem to come true.
Thank you. ACDC or Hustletown and then ACDC?
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people are going to put their $100,000-$200,000 Teslas on the network.
Hold on, I'm sorry. Where are people paying $100,000 to $200,000
I was
for
getting
Teslas?
to that, AI driver. Let me work. But they will put their $30,000, $35,000 Model 3s. And imagine if the juice is worth the squeeze. Panda's out there right now. That's a $100,000 Model X. I will put that on the network just to see. My wife will hate me for it. But if I think the juice is worth the squeeze, I'm going to buy a cheaper model, anything with hardware 4, and if they ever get hardware 3 working. But think about the possibilities if the juice is worth the squeeze. That's what people will find out. Teslas aren't that expensive anymore.
Okay. ACDC?
Yeah, driver, I have a question for you. By the way, I love your videos. They're the best. So if you roll back a few years, there was an accident that occurred with Cruise that ended their whole full self-driving or autonomous ambition. What makes you think that Tesla, just by putting one driverless car in a city, can just launch it all over, among the Model 3s and Ys everywhere? Don't you think the approach would be still the same as kind of like Waymo, a slow paced approach where they're cautious, getting approvals, and not just approvals, but also the confidence of the people that these are fully reliable, that if it shows up in front of your house, you can confidently get into it? And in fact, I would challenge you for maybe one video. How about you just go to 10 random people and tell them, hey, my car is going to drive you. You get in here, you don't do anything, it's going to drive you. And I want to see if those 10 people will take you up on it.
Yeah, that sounds like a great video idea. And to be clear, what the path you described is exactly how I think is going to happen. The difference between Cruise and Waymo is that it's way easier for Tesla to expand because people will be using the same versions of full self-driving that's allowed to be driverless in other areas. And all they have to do is take a look at where it's working way better than a human, which I don't think is very, very difficult at this point. And they can expand to those areas with a push of a button. Like Waymo has to literally map every inch out and remap it when things change. And they're still driving on the wrong side of the road. They're hitting telephone poles that just got installed, even with LiDAR. And there's a lot of situations like that. And also Cruise, it's funny you bring that up. Cruise did not get banned off the roads for hitting a pedestrian because autonomous vehicles are going to hit pedestrians. And I think as long as they're doing that a lot less than humans, it's fine. The reason they got pulled off the roads is because they lied about what happened to that pedestrian. They falsified the incident report. So I think that incidents are going to happen with Teslas. It's inevitable. I think the latest data in California alone is that there's 250,000 accidents per year, which is just a mind-boggling number. The cars are going to crash. I think that what we have to look at is, are they crashing considerably less than humans? And I think once the answer is yes, is like, of course, some people are never going to want to sit in a car without a steering wheel. But once the answer to that question is yes, I would feel very comfortable getting into a Tesla, much more comfortable, in fact, than getting into an Uber or Lyft.
AI driver. I mean, AC/DC.
Great. So I think we agree on that point. I'm in agreement with you that eventually we'll get there. Okay. So let's just back and forth, maybe try to put a timeline around it, right? First, we have to get to V13, then way past V13. Are we on the same page on that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I don't even anticipate them meeting their goal of a driverless car ride taking place next year. I think it's going to be late, but I'm just telling you what I think is going to happen when it finally does happen.
Okay, so when do you think that happens?
It's hard to say. I think we're going to have to look at the progress over the next year. If it matches the progress we've seen from the first version of version 12 to where we are now, then I can confidently say that they will have a driverless car by the end of next year. But it's going to be hard to maintain that momentum and have these breakthroughs that they've been having to make the car perform so much better.
Okay, so let's say 1 year from today, we have the first driverless car. Then that driverless car is implemented in those couple of cities, right? How many years do you think it takes from there for Tesla to turn it on everywhere?
Everywhere? I don't think I think it's likely never going to work everywhere. There's some places that are just too difficult to drive. Humans can't even really drive there well. Like the places where it's just ice all the time and snow and blah, blah, blah. The cars may never be able to get to those places, honestly.
Let's just say on a mass scale, on a large scale deployment.
Are you like multiple cities or what
Yeah,
are we talking here?
AC/DC, you have to be super specific in this conversation. Like you can't say something like 5 cities, 10 cities, or the way I ask people is thousands of robotaxis or 1 millionth ride kind of stuff.
Let's go with 10,000 robotaxis. I mean, I don't even think that's all that material to the bottom line, but let's just go with that.
Yeah, I think that'll happen really quickly after they launch in just a few cities. I think we could see that happen extremely quickly because, everybody talks about the $200,000 Tesla. Like those aren't even a blip on the map of Tesla sales. The vast majority are Model Y and Model 3 that are much less expensive. And there's a lot of people who just don't use their cars. And I think, having their car payment made every month while they, do whatever they're doing by just letting their car go drive around, it's may not be appealing to me, but it is going to be appealing for a lot of owners.
And who do you think would handle the insurance and the liability of it?
Oh, it's Tesla, 100% Tesla. Tesla has insurance. Yeah.
Okay. Can I take charge of this conversation? Thank you. So AI driver, you mentioned earlier that new speakers need to stay on mute and raise their hand until I call them. AI driver, you mentioned that if Tesla shows the same improvements that they showed with V12, with V13, you're confident that Tesla will have robotaxis by the end of next year. But on the other hand, Ilya Sutskever, co-founder of OpenAI and Safe Superintelligence and one of Elon's favorites, recently remarked that the era of simply scaling AI models to achieve better performance has plateaued. He stated, quote, "The 2010s were the age of scaling. Now we're back in the age of wonder and discovery once again. Everyone's looking for the next thing," end quote. This observation reflects a broader industry sentiment that increasing model size and computational resources no longer yield the significant performance gains once observed. Reports indicate that OpenAI's upcoming model, Orion, shows only marginal improvements over GPT-4, particularly in complex tasks like coding. What are your views on if scaling laws will continue for decades to come, years to come, decades to come, just like Moore's law did? Or do you think if Ilya Sutskever is correct that they are plateauing, how does that impact your view of FSD progress?
I think in the world of large language models, it might be very different because just recently we've seen a big parameter increase in a model, and it was very clear. You could feel the difference. There was a massive improvement in performance from increasing those parameters. So they might be facing a different problem internally than a large language model team having the car drive through a physical world.
Sorry, I'm having some connection issues. But so you mentioned that in the world of large language models that they played out, it may be different in the real world. And you mentioned that in the past, when Tesla increased the model size, you could feel the difference. Saying that scaling laws, in other words, you said scaling laws worked in the past, but you're saying it may be different in the future in the real world versus large language models. What gives you confidence that scalar laws will continue to produce immense improvement in the future for real world, but maybe not for large language models?
Just my future outlook is based on my experience with what they have shipped so far. So, the last version they shipped, they said, "Hey, we're increasing the parameter count on this version." It was like a massive difference from the largest
No,
model they could
I
ship
agree with you.
on.
You're just repeating yourself. I agree with you that it worked in the past, just like it worked in large language models.
Okay, so I
What I'm
think
telling
that
you is, what I'm asking you is, why do you think past performance is indicative of future performance in the real world, but not in the large language models?
I'm just saying they might be facing separate problems. The problems people are having with large language models right now are very different than the problems that self-driving cars are facing. It's a completely different application of AI, like completely different.
How are they different?
I think there's a lot less the car has to know to drive a car than to be this all-knowing being. I think that OpenAI is trying to make a generalized AI solution, and they're going through the struggles of doing that. This is making the smartest person on earth who can think for itself and blah, 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 blah. Where Tesla's goal is to make a car that drives considerably safer than a driver. And the scope of that project is much different than building some all knowing AI.
Okay, well, we have Wes on the speaker board right now. So Wes used to work for Tesla on the autopilot team as a product manager. He also worked at SpaceX and Google, very well versed in software and hardware of AI. So the same question for Wes. Wes, Ilya Sutskever says that scaling laws are maybe plateauing. AI driver says maybe that is the case for large language models, but it may be different for real world applications of AI, especially for FSD, because the scope of the problem is different. How confident are you, Wes, that scaling laws will continue to produce these outsized increases in performance as the models increase?
Yeah, it's a great question. And largely, I think that the performance of the transformer architecture and the implementation of inference on top of that is going to continue to scale very well for at least the next 2 to 3 years. Now, I'm not saying that it's going to do better with information in, information out. I'm saying it will do better with that, but not better with information in and knowledge out. So information can still contain intent, which is, I think, how Tesla produces their models. And obviously, they have to get to an incredible reliability, whereas the transformer model isn't as great as that with hallucinations. We are seeing incredible improvements, though, with tweaks and different ways to train the model and different ways to post-train the model to make it reduce hallucinations quite a bit. So these are going to continue to happen because there's an incredible amount of money wrapped around inference and AI, for people to make applications on top of. So I think it will continue to scale.
Okay. ACDC, any questions for AI driver or Wes about scaling laws?
I'm good.
Wes?
Hey, I've only got just a few more minutes, just FYI, and then I'll rejoin after I finish an appointment.
Okay, thank you. Wes, do you agree with AI driver that Tesla will likely have robotaxis sometime next year? Driverless rides in a couple of cities sometime next year.
I specifically said I didn't think that was going to happen, just so you know.
Oh, okay. So what is your statement? No, AI drivers. So what is your statement? What is your expectation? When do you think Tesla will get to robotaxis? Because I thought you said if V13 shows the same performance as V12 and you feel confident that scaling laws will continue to scale.
V13 is just one step on the long staircase. I think that what I said was if they were able to achieve the same massive improvements that we've seen from the initial version of version 12, like in another year period, I think we could get to well beyond human safety in some cities.
Okay,
But
so how is that different from what I said? Okay.
There's going to have to be a lot. They're going to have to, I don't know, figure shit out. Like, I really don't even know what to say. Like, the progress they've made so far almost seems impossible to me because I've been testing full self-driving for so many years, and I saw these minor improvements, and then what I've seen over the past year is absolutely mind-blowing. If they can keep that up, which I don't think they'll be able to do, then yeah, next year robotaxi for sure. But if these things take time, new discoveries have to be made, models have to be tweaked, yada yada yada.
Okay, so before I go to ACDC, let me just get you guys probability estimate of Tesla driverless rides starting in at least 2 cities by the end of next year, so that I can put some of this contextual comments into a bit more kind of playing field, balanced, so I can understand what the fuck you're saying, basically. So what probability do you assign to driverless rides in 2 cities by the end of next year?
Coin toss.
So 50-50, Wes?
Much higher than that, but we need to see the feature complete build first. Since it's already been teased, once I see that, I can see how far they are away. So it's a big milestone.
Okay, so AI driver says 50-50. Okay, so I'm having some bugs in the X app, and that's obviously one of the reasons why I think like this app should be much easier to fix. These bugs should be much easier to fix than putting up together an autonomous driving system that can kill people. But the team that works with Elon is clearly incapable of fixing these bugs for years now, and that's part of the reason why I don't think they're going to be able to. They have the capacity to do this kind of stuff. But anyway, so AI driver says 50-50. Wes said much higher. If they can get to future complete soon, ACDC, what's your estimate? And Lucha, what's your estimate?
I'll go with AI driver. I think 50-50 is possible.
Okay, Lucha?
I think 60% in Palo Alto and 35% in Austin.
Yeah, and I'll take less than 50% for either city. So AI driver, yesterday we got some news that Gavin Newsom wants to exclude Tesla from statewide EV credits if Trump administration cancels credits. How do you think that translates to probability of Tesla getting approval for robotaxis in California?
I think that once the data is coming in about how many less people are dying on the streets every day by robotaxis versus the human hand, I don't think there's going to be much of an argument to keep the cars off the road here. Just like there's no argument with Waymo or even Cruise at one point. Cruise had its problems, but even with all the problems that it had, it was considerably safer than the average San Francisco driver. They just got caught up in, a lie. But yeah, I don't think that's gonna. I think that anybody can try to stop that train. Once it's safer than humans, it's not even going to be a question of whether it should be in the city. It's going to be like, do you want to save lives or no?
Yeah, that's what I thought as well. But I think that the politically motivated California team can make sure clearly that they can leave out Tesla and approve others and still save lives.
Yeah, California hates Elon.
Okay, ACDC, any questions, comments before Wes has to go?
I actually just wanted to get a quick confirmation before Wes leaves. I listened to your AI Amateur Space recording last night, and I think Robert Scoble, he had a couple of interesting points. One was the question that you asked him on how much more inference he thinks the robotic inference will take over FSD. And he said 3x, right? If I'm correct. So I just wanted to get Wes's quick take on that, if he agrees with something like that.
No, I think so. Here's the discussion. It was on the training side, and the question was, which is what Wes mentioned earlier, that Optimus will have to train on 3D, and FSD is making decisions on planning, especially on 2D. And the question was, how much more difficult it is going that means for training of Optimus models. So does that mean an order of magnitude because it's one more dimension, or is it 3 times, or is it? And I think he said 30%. So Wes, what do you think that means for the fact that Optimus is training on 3D versus FSD planning is training on 2D?
Yeah, I think they're going to, we talked about this yesterday a bit, but I'll reiterate. I think they need a new process in training, like an update to the process where they're going to have to train different models for different tasks. Like the walking task is going to be extremely difficult, but it's not going to do two things at once. So it's going to walk, it's going to stop, and then it's going to perform an action. So they need a walking model, then they need a balance model, and then they need a task model, that type of thing. They probably also need like a normal task model, and then a fine-grained, like really fine detail task model. So I feel like these will be different ones, and these will run at different priorities at runtime in different control loops. So I feel like that's the way that they'll solve the inference performance issue. That would be how I would focus the team anyway. I got to go. Sorry. Thanks. I'll join later.
Thanks, Wes. All right, sounds good. AI driver, so ACDC, does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. So AI driver, question for you. So earlier today, I asked you, what do you think was the price of Tesla? And you said, I don't know, I don't care, I don't think about the financial terms. You're focused very much on FSD. Isn't that in a way saying like, I'm gonna buy this couch and I don't care what the price is, I'll pay anything for this couch?
Oh yeah, that's absolutely like that. But if you're under the impression that the market works with real numbers, you're sadly mistaken. It's all fairyland. This is we're telling fairy tales out here. That's what the stock is based off of, not fundamentals.
Okay, I mean, I agree with you. In the shorter term, stocks can depend on narrative and hype and emotions. But do you think that's also true on the longer term?
Yeah, I think Tesla's longer term looks much better than the short term with everything they have cooking up right now. Definitely.
Silent?
Just a point to point out is that at any point in time, even in the future, you're going to be sitting there with that current day's realities and then some future new crazy outlook, right? So it's always going to be the mix of the two, and it's always going to have this future forward looking wild speculation. I think the only real risk is that something happens to Elon. But short of that happening, the future is always going to be some crazy exaggerated thing that we either believe he's going to do or he don't.
Yeah, I think I think what you said just now was true in the last decade. I don't think it's going to be true today.
With humanoid bots and driverless cars, how can you say that, man? Like a few years from now, we're going to be arguing whether Optimus can balance himself down the Golden Gate Bridge or something. Like, how could you say that with the future projects they have going on? If you don't believe that, that's fine. Then say that. Like, I don't think they're going to achieve what they're saying they're going to achieve. But to say that the future is not exciting is crazy.
Well, that's not what I said. What I said was, I think the dynamics that affected Tesla and other stock prices in the last decade are different from what's going to happen in the next coming years and next decade in some key ways. Like, for example, if a recession happens, then your story about Optimus or FSD falls by the wayside and every stock goes down. Do you agree?
No, because if that happens, people aren't going to be driving as many or buying as many cars, and they're going to be shuttled around by robo taxis instead.
Okay, so you're saying that if tomorrow a recession starts, people are going to be shuttled around in robo taxis.
Well, not tomorrow, but I'm not that short term. Like even next year, even if it
Okay,
takes.
so
That's what I'm saying.
you're saying that within the next year, if a recession starts, Tesla stock will not go down.
No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying there's very exciting things to look forward to, no matter the situation. The stock could do whatever, man. You could make a lot of money from your short position, and in fact, I hope you do. My whole spiel yesterday was just to warn you how dangerous it is, and how many people have tried to do what you're doing, and it didn't turn out well.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, when I was long Tesla in 2018, 2019, Jim Chanos, David Einhorn, and Michael Burry were short in the stock, and others. Citron, all these big names were shorting it, and I was against them. And today, clearly, I'm against pretty much everybody in the Tesla TSLA community. And I'm okay taking that risk. Like, I understand that I can be wrong. Maybe the majority is correct. And that's the nature of the game. And I appreciate your concern, but unless if you have any specific things that we want to discuss, I'd rather discuss fundamentals of the business instead of kind of going back and forth about this. Like, I'm just worried about your health.
No, I didn't mean that to be like. I really didn't mean it that way, but I genuinely was like seeing some of the stuff you were posting and calling people out like by name. Like that was, it was rough to see because I think you're a really good guy. But yeah, if we're going back to fundamental stuff, like I said, like I only came here to talk about full self-driving. I'm probably going to hop off, but it's always a pleasure being here. I enjoy talking to you.
Okay, thank you. G ready.
I just want to respond on a couple of comments people are making on affordability of Teslas. I see the current price of the Tesla Model 3 you can lease for $174 per month. That's cheaper than insurance costs for most of the communities out there. I think there is a big, huge arbitrage out there that once it's a question of, I think, when, as opposed to if FSD. I think back in the beginning of the year, there were a lot of questions around if FSD is going to solve the problem of unsupervised driverless commute. I think we've gone so much from 11.3 to 12.5.6.3 right now in the last 12 months. I pretty much drive about like 100 miles a day, no CI, critical interventions. I think a lot of people are asking the question, when is it going to come? Is it early next year, later next year? Like, who cares? Who else is actually solving the problem? I think,
Waymo is solving the problem.
yeah, but
So let me ask
okay.
you something. Let me ask you something.
Are they
You don't think, Jeev, let me ask you something. You don't think that there's a difference to the stock or the company's fundamentals if Tesla solves a problem tomorrow versus a decade from today?
So regardless of FSD, right? Keeping FSD aside.
Well, I just asked you a yes or no question. So why don't you start with a yes or no?
What was the question again?
So you didn't listen to the question. You just want to talk about what you have to say in your head and listen to yourself. Is that what I'm hearing right now?
Repeat the question, please.
Okay. Do you think there's a difference between FSD solving autonomy, vision-only autonomy tomorrow versus a decade from today?
I think it's going to be sooner than that, sooner than a decade from now.
But that's not what I asked you. Like, this is the struggle I have with most people in this space and in my personal life. And then on another note, you have to stay on mute when you're not talking. Okay. The problem with communication right now, first of all, I think that all differences can be resolved with perfect communication. All differences, all conflict can be resolved with perfect communication. Okay. And obviously, that's not ideal. And you're never going to have 100% perfect communication. But we have to try to get close to 100% as much as possible. And what I see sometimes with people is I ask you a question. It's a yes or no question. Answer the fucking question instead of talking about things that you want to talk about. Do you want to move the ball forward in this conversation? Do you want to reach a consensus at the end of the day? Do you want to understand the problem better through communication? Then you have to commit to a good, great communication skills. And that is yes or no question. Start with a yes or no. Do you think there's a difference to the company's stock and the fundamentals if Tesla solves vision on autonomy tomorrow versus a decade from today? Jeev.
Yes.
Thank you. So then the question becomes, how far ahead of time, how far later does it become material to our understanding of the company's value? Is there a difference between, like, I agree with you, for example, there's no difference whether they do it tomorrow or the next day. But if it's tomorrow versus 5 years, and you also have multiple players trying to do the same thing, and now they have 5 years to catch up to you or solve the problem, then that's a material difference to the company's intrinsic value.
Okay, I'm listening. I'm trying to see if you have a question there.
I have a question. That's my point.
Okay.
So this idea of just I'm only focused on FST, it doesn't matter when they do it, is I think half-baked. Now you can say things like, if I were on the bull side, okay, what I would say is, it doesn't matter it doesn't matter when they're going to solve FSD tomorrow or a decade from today, because Tesla has so many other things going on that will lead to, you have to stay on mute when you're not talking, Jeev. Thank you. It doesn't matter because they have so many other things going on that would lead to stock price, that would lead to stock price increase, even if FSD was delayed. Like, for example, Cybertruck production is going to ramp, to, hundreds of thousands of units a year, and it's going to be a very profitable product. Or you can say things like Tesla Energy, profit margins will stay high, and Tesla will continue to ramp production. And not only production, but also installations will increase because of deregulation from Trump administration. That's a valid argument. And I would love to have that discussion. But this insistence about FSD, doesn't matter whether it's going to be solved tomorrow or a decade from today, is just so naive and what a waste of time for everybody here. Hustletown?
All right. I think that Waymo is going to do something like it, right? Waymo's already doing what they do. But I think the reason why people think FSD is going to be so groundbreaking is because of its scalability and how far it can reach, right? We got 700 vehicles for Waymo right now, spread off against 4 regions ish. And Tesla, somebody said earlier that 1,000 robo taxis would be insignificant to the bottom line earlier. I don't know who said that, but think about it. Waymo's at 700. They're not making a dime off their robo taxis. If Tesla had 1,000 and all those vehicles, that's basically a lot of margin, right? A lot of I think the way that Tesla is doing it is what's going to separate them from their competitors. As far as I know, nobody's got a vision-based system. Nobody's pushing out millions of vehicles a year with the capability to turn it on like a light switch. I, I think there's a lot of optimism in there. Basically, from what Jeev is saying, but to say that if it happens tomorrow versus 2034, it will be material to the stock price. But because no one is going to be able to achieve it like they can, it's going to Netflix the hell out of all the other blockbusters that are trying to do it.
All right. ACDC, any what do you think?
I'd like to ask a Hustletown this that I'm the one who actually said that 10,000 vehicles would be material to the bottom line. So I mean, do you have a specific math that how much that would add to it?
Well, I'll just look at it. They don't have to add anything to the sensors like to the available cars, right? Everything's coming out there stock, essentially, right? So when you talk about what it would cost them to maintain a robotaxi fleet, service, and all this other stuff, their cost per mile is going to be significantly lower than, say, that of a Waymo or Uber, who uses humans, Lyft, whatever. So I think they'll have a lot of ability to scale the price. Have I done the numbers on it? A long time ago, and trust me, those numbers are wrong because I have no idea what it's going to look like. But based on what Tesla has shown me from their ability to overcome adversity, whether it be a global pandemic or being the only profitable company that sells battery electric vehicles, I have a little bit of confidence that they're going to come from a starting place that's going to be significantly cheaper than their competitors. And then they're going to be able to price them out, much like they trying to do with this price war in China. So, uh, it's whether or not you think that they're going to make any money, but being able to scale to 10,000 when Waymo's only using approximately, let's just say less than 1,000, it's going to be significantly material because of the cost per mile.
ACDC.
So I think that's what we both I think pretty much everybody on the board here on the space agrees on one thing, that they'll get there eventually. I think the big disconnect is when, and is the valuation justified as if it's happening now or happening next year. So I've got a quick question for Jeev. That Jeev, you were highlighting that you can lease a Model 3 for $174 and so on forth. It's a great deal. I think that there's a lot of Teslas, including in the used car market, that you can pick up really cheap. So my question is that, is it just us geniuses who know the secret here? You don't think Uber knows this? Uber subsidizes electric cars, and it has done so just to meet some ESG mandates and stuff, right? Couldn't they be picking up this fleet, giving the cars out to their drivers at a discounted rate so that they're ready in the 2 years to be just completely rolled out? Wouldn't there be a private equity who would be just scooping up all these cheap cars right now if this was ready to be rolled out in the next 2-3 years? I don't know. I think there's a lot of smart people with a lot of money out there who would be willing to put their money to work if this was going to happen as soon as 2 to 3 years.
Jeev.
I hope they do that. I hope people are paying the bet that Tesla is going to start rolling out. We have seen the Palo Alto commissioner being trying. Something came out in the news a couple months ago that they were trying to figure out if they could start using Tesla FSD for the city driving. So I hope that people, like you said, the smart money is going to buy some of these cars. Uber can buy some of these cars at a dirt cheap price. But what we have seen for the Tesla fleet is that the costs are going down significantly, right? So can they buy now and then wait for like a year or should they buy a year from now? But at the end of the day, if I think for me, it's not a question of can FSD solve the problem today as opposed to 10 years from now. I think it's a question of can they do maybe a year from now. What I was saying that based on the improvements that I have personally seen, that the level of improvements and the multiplication factor of the improvements to the FSD interventions has gone down significantly since beginning of the year. So I personally feel very comfortable to say that sometime in the next year, probably mark my words, Tesla could potentially roll out a FSD unsupervised fleet, like somebody was saying, Palo Alto or maybe somewhere
Well,
in
here's the
Texas.
problem. You're saying mark my words, and then you're like probably. That doesn't exude confidence to me.
Probability of 60%, 60
Why
to
am I?
70%.
We already know that. I mean, we already know that there is some probability that they might do it in one city or something by the end of next year. Okay. All right, I need to move on from this conversation. Thank you. So just for fun, just tagged me on a tweet by Gavin Baker. And Gavin says, and I just reposted it so you can see it on my profile if you want. Gavin says, almost every major AI lab remains compute constrained to varying degrees, generally more due to a lack of power rather than lack of GPUs today. And mega cap tech companies are unanimously saying they would be growing faster if they had more compute. And then just for fun, let me see if he's here. I don't see him. But he's welcome to request to speak if he's listening anonymously or something and have a discussion, because he just asked me my thoughts on this. I don't know what the exact question is, but I said, what's your question exactly? And just for fun said, do you believe what Gavin is saying on mega cap companies and think that has implications for your NVIDIA position? Well, the thing is, Gavin is saying in the parentheses, generally more due to lack of power rather than lack of GPUs today. So that right there tells me. So I think that answers his question right there. Luce?
Yeah, so I wanted to say my opinion regarding compute and scaling and so on. So this is what I think. I think that if Tesla would have to invest 100 billions to solve FSD, that would be bullish for Tesla. I think the current problem is that Tesla is not compute constrained. As they said in the last quarter call, they basically are using the remaining compute for backup for other work, which means that solving FSD is not so correlated with compute as we think, which will be bullish, because if you say we have the solution, we just lack 100 billions, I will be all for it. I don't know, let's take debt. Let's take 150 billions of debt, let's solve FSD tomorrow. But this is not the case. And it's way
Okay, so
more
Luce,
bearish.
in summary, in short, is saying if Tesla were to commit $100 billion to building more compute, he would buy back his shares that he sold. Luce, is that fair?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Wessex?
Hey guys, I don't know. I'll just jump in right here. I really underestimating the ability of Tesla to iterate if after they start deploying some cars. For example, let's say they choose one city and they deploy a few vehicles. They could really restrain the path and speed, customer base, weather, time of day. There's so many things they can dial in to start generating revenue as early as next year, even on a very small scale. That makes a lot of this conversation. I just think that's underestimated, the ability to iterate in those areas.
Yeah, I agree with you that Tesla can start robotaxis if it's limited to, let's say, very ideal conditions, and you only do it when it's clear out, you have high visibility at certain times of the day or night when there's less traffic. I agree with you. Is that your point?
Well, I'll add one more point. Going back
Okay.
to yesterday's conversation, I think I wasn't able to participate, but I think people are really underestimating the importance of the first dollar being generated by way of robotaxi, particularly a rideshare. The moment they start making a dollar is when this thing's going to start running. And it'll start scaling from that point on. And of course, you'll have the bears and the shorts will be, well, it's just in this one city, it's just limited to this time of day and all the various, shortcomings of the deployment. But that's the moment. The moment they generate the first dollars when this thing takes off.
So confident in that statement. And can you define takes off?
Yeah, I think we have a multi-year run in the stock price starting at some point, and I think that's the point, is that $1. And I don't know, how many years this thing's going to run, but I think it's just going to go, just like it did in 2020 to 2021. So I think we're just in this
Okay.
holding pattern.
So you don't have a price target and you don't have a estimate of how fast it's going to get there.
I don't have a price target because I'm a long, I'm in long, so it really doesn't matter to me. It's hard to really gauge. I've my own little models for my stock, but I think on the downside, the very lowest it would be 20% per year, which I think is just ridiculously low. But I use that at home because that's my very conservative estimate of the growth. But it's very likely to triple in the next 3 or 4 years. I think that's very possible. So somewhere between those two.
Okay. So $1,000 per share in the next 3-4 years is very likely, Wes says.
Possible.
Okay, we have a question for you in the replies, Wes. I mean, I agree anything's possible. I can't debate these vague statements. Prestige Worldwide, Wes Hicks asks you, why, if that first ride is so important, why hasn't Tesla deployed driverless cars in the Las Vegas tunnel?
That's not the dollar that matters. That's just different. That's not the same business that we're about to get in. It's an interesting question, but it's that is limited in its upside. And by the way, Yaman, I mentioned 20% on the low end with 3 times on the high end within that range. It's a large range.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And my range is from 0 to infinity. Thank you. Learn code.
Hey, I just got 2 quick questions. Do you guys think Waymo can become profitable and offer a material lower cost per mile than like a low cost Toyota? And like, when is the time frame for that?
Yeah, I think Tesla is obviously, like, we're seeing some drone shots at Giga Texas with the Cybercab driving around. There's some cars covered and everything. Who knows what that exactly means, right? But I think that Tesla will introduce some more affordable models, like they said they will, in the next coming months, quarters, maybe a year, and it's going to scale it. But my view on the more affordable models has always been that they're going to have low margins until FSD take rate goes above 50, 60, 70%. And I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. So further, I think these more affordable models will cannibalize Model 3 and Model Y sales.
Was that an answer to my question?
I thought you said
no, Waymo. Because I know Waymo's not profitable. So I was just wondering, since we're always talking about FSD versus Waymo, when they'll be profitable and be able to, without jacking up the prices.
I totally misheard you.
No worries.
Yeah, I don't think Waymo is going to be profitable ever.
So then that would have less of an impact if Tesla solves FSD later, right? If its competitors have a 5-year head start but are unprofitable, then they might not even be competitors in 5 years.
Go ahead. I think it's important to note that Waymo is financed by Google, who just decided to put in $5 billion in. So I also have the view that most, if not all, Chinese automakers will continue to be unprofitable when they produce EVs. but that doesn't mean they're going to take share from Tesla in China and maybe in other countries and limit Tesla's profitability in those areas. So it's still important to Tesla's valuation.
But won't Google just drop Waymo if in 5 years it's rolling out and still it's just structurally unprofitable?
Well, maybe Waymo. I mean, I don't know that for a fact. Maybe, but they've had it going until now, and the material fact here is they just committed another $5 billion. So that's very important to know. And also, like, one possible explanation why they would keep it going, even if Waymo still continues to be unprofitable, is maybe they can use that data for some other product and service.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and maybe Tesla can do that too. I don't know, but that's TBD, right?
Yeah. But it's also TBD for Waymo because they can't do it profitably. So it almost doesn't matter unless, as you said, they're building some artificial intelligence and they're using that just for data at a discount.
Yeah. Yeah, some sort of loss leader service. I don't know. Maybe Tesla's going to do that too. Maybe use the data unprofitably for Optimus development or some other thing. I don't know.
I have one more follow-up
Yeah.
question, if I may.
Man, you know what's really surprising to me? None of the Tesla bulls are talking about Tesla Energy. Like, if I was debating a Tesla bear and I was a Tesla bull, I would focus on Tesla Energy. Anyway, learn code.
Yeah, I just had one other question. I noticed like how much the highway affects because of the air drag when I test drove a Tesla. And I was just wondering if you guys have thought about that for like Waymo and LiDAR using companies, if they're gonna get into shipping like semis, how much is that gonna affect their cost having those big sensors that aren't aerodynamic when they're driving on the highway, and how much will it affect their miles? It's got to be significant, right? I would think they almost can't compete on the highway just because of that.
Yeah.
Assuming Tesla, solves that.
I don't honestly, I don't think primary competition for Tesla FSD is Waymo. I think it's going to be just human drivers, continue to drive their vehicles. And, I think the adoption of FSD, Tesla Robotaxi, is going to remain low. I think people just choose to continue to drive.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. West Hicks, I got another question for your MicroStrategy, but I know you had your hand up on Tesla. Go ahead.
I just don't understand your last statement. Like, you think people are going to choose to drive their own car instead of taking a less expensive vehicle that they can just kind of watch movies in? Is that what you're saying?
Well, first of all, I think taking a vehicle where they can watch movies is going to take some time, but also human-driven Teslas on the Uber network will also be competition. Waymo will also be competition. Individual car ownership will also be competition for Tesla Robotaxi. So my overarching point is that the adoption of robotaxis to the level where it's material to Tesla's bottom line is going to take years beyond what people expect. Wessex?
Yeah, I definitely disagree. Here's something I think I can add value for the audience on this topic. I had a real breakthrough recently. I have both. I have a Model S with Hardware 3 that's from 2017, and I have a Cybertruck. And the Model S, the Hardware 3, has got a long ways to go. The Cybertruck is almost there, meaning I think we're so close to being able to deploy full self-driving autonomously in limited areas, minimizing risk, like I mentioned earlier, time of day and locations and stuff, that 12 is so good on the Cybertruck that 13 should be able to do it. So, I don't know any more than you know or anybody else, but I think we're within reach of being able to generate revenue next year and start the rideshare based on that.
Okay. Well, and you're putting where your money mouth, where you're putting your money where your mouth is. So that's good. My question to you on MicroStrategy is, I think, asked about how they make money yesterday. Do you have a position in MicroStrategy, or what do you think about the stock?
I don't. In fact, I know very little. My question was to Machine about, he mentioned leverage, and I didn't understand how they were using leverage.
Okay. Yeah, that stock is going down. I increased my position yesterday or the day before, yesterday morning, and the stock is down 13% today. From the peak, it's down about 34% in just 4 days, which is incredible. And I think it's just a worthless business. Learn code.
I just had a question on the energy side. I know she's lost a little bit of credibility, but Kathy Wood always talks about rights law. And I was just wondering if the energy side of the business, if Tesla can leverage how much batteries they need. I think they use LFP, but if that is lowering the cost or helping them lower the cost for the batteries that go in their car, and if anyone knows anything about that. So will scaling energy also bring down the cost for battery cells in the car? I guess is the short point of my question.
I think battery costs are driven mostly at this point by raw material costs. So I think battery costs will continue to decline, and maybe when 4680 scales at some point, maybe that will also reduce battery cost. I think we'll see another COGS reduction from Q3 to Q4, not as much as the drop in Q3. Like Tesla, James Catt mentions that it was more of a one-time benefit in Q3 where they got a massive discount from CATL. Yeah, I think battery continues to. I don't think specifically what you asked, which is Tesla energy battery production will materially impact Tesla automotive battery prices. Wessex.
I just raised my hand because I wanted to clarify his question, but he did that. But I would say, look, if we're buying more LFP or materials for LFP, we're certainly the energy division with the new place opening up in China right now. We're going to have a lot more spend, and certainly we can leverage that into these contracts that we're establishing with the providers of those with the batteries.
West6 and Learn Code, do you guys think Tesla Energy will be more or less profitable in China versus US?
Oh, more for sure.
Learn Code?
I really don't have enough context to give an educated answer.
Okay, so Luce disagreed with West6's statement. ACDC, what do you think?
I'm sorry, I was distracted there. I did not get the question.
Do you think Tesla Energy will be more or less profitable in China versus US?
I think it'll be more profitable in China.
Hustletown?
Yeah, I don't have enough information. I'd like it to be, but yeah, we'll see. There's a lot of competition over there.
West6, you said for sure it will be more profitable. Why? What gives you so much confidence?
The speed in which they can scale in China, and I think the limited regulations compared to the United States, I think those two factors together will allow us to overcome our fixed cost and generate a lot more on the bottom line as a result, and quickly.
But the two factors you mentioned, which is production and scaling and less regulation, also apply to Tesla Automotive, and Tesla Automotive is more profitable in the US than in China. So why do you think that's going to be different for energy?
Well, I think my answer stays the same regardless of automotive. Do you have something that you can add there to why that wouldn't be the case?
No, I'm just asking. I'm trying to understand your position right now. You said the two reasons why Tesla Energy will be more profitable in China versus in the US are speed of scaling and also less regulation. Those two factors also apply to Tesla Automotive, but the result is different. In Tesla Automotive is more profitable in US versus in China. So why do you think Tesla Energy will have a different outcome?
Yeah, gotcha. So because the China facility is twice as big as the United States, right now the United States is near capacity, and once China starts scaling up, which I imagine will happen pretty quickly, and I'm talking about production, these guys can blow it out, right? With the ability to have twice the capacity, or with twice the capacity they have United States, they'll certainly be more profitable.
Okay, let me ask ACDC. So ACDC also said it's probably going to be likely more profitable in China. ACDC, you heard my question to West 6. Why do you think so?
Well, I think in the near term, energy prices overall here in the US are going to come down. Okay. And secondly, I think the energy deployment for Tesla is better suited for a densely populated, growing market. Well, used to be growing, probably will be growing again, like China and perhaps even India.
ACDC, sorry, can you repeat your answer, please?
So I think just the way the infrastructure is laid out, right? I think for a economy such as China and for densely populated countries such as China, it's more profitable. And with energy prices coming lower in the US in the foreseeable future, I think the growth will be more in China than it will be here.
Okay, West 6.
ACDC, why do you think the cost is going to reduce to create energy in the United States in the near term?
Drill, baby, drill. I mean, that was one of the first, it's one of the first mandates that Trump ran on, and he's going to cut a lot of regulations and support the oil and energy industry from the ground up. So I think the costs are going to come down across the board.
So you're saying because energy prices in the US are going to come down across the board, the adoption of mega packs in the US are going to be slower than in China?
I think that's part reason.
Okay. Well, nobody mentioned, okay, go ahead, West 6.
I guess I don't know. I'm just thinking about that. Like, certainly the cost of gasoline, oil, is going to come down. But how much of the energy, if you're talking about the grid, I thought that's what you were talking about a moment ago. If you're talking about the grid, are you saying the grid, the cost of electricity is going to come down? And maybe I was confused. Maybe I just kind of made a wrong assumption when you said energy.
Correct. So I'm talking about just overall oil and energy, and it definitely does play into the grid also. So just in my state itself, what's been happening, and I'm in Illinois, is the price has been predicted to go up. It is, as of right now, it's still predicted to go up. So if regulations don't change from the top, maybe it does not happen. But what they've been doing is they've been retiring a lot of older plants, okay, and not bringing on any renewable resources to supplement them in time, okay. So I actually posted something on this article on just for this foreseeable winter, that how the grid is in dire danger for this upcoming winter because of the energy demand, and this is across the country basically. And I'll try to post it up here also, but that's been happening across the country. You know, the same climate group doesn't want coal plants anymore. Okay. So I think a lot of these things will be changed. A lot of these regulations will be changed. The money that's been going to this green industry, that's going to be taken away. So I think overall it does bring energy costs down and grid prices too.
West 6.
Yeah, I guess maybe I have I don't know, maybe I'm not understanding you correctly. Energy is not, at least my understanding, and tell me if I'm wrong, energy for the grid is not created largely by oil. It's coal, nuclear, solar, and natural gas. So that's why I'm really confused on your point about oil, drill, baby, drill, and how it connects to the grid. Am I missing something?
So that's what I said. I said I coupled that with oil and energy. And that's where I also mentioned the coal. Okay, so yes, most of the energy production is done by coal. And it's the coal plants, the older coal plants, they've been taking them into retirement way earlier than scheduled. Okay, because it's been a push on renewable energy. So that all is going to change. And as far as nuclear, if you look at it overall as a country, we haven't really been nuclear friendly. In fact, the whole green group doesn't want nuclear. Okay, And it's been on the private sector most recently, the smaller companies, or well, the large tech companies, which are actually looking to their own micronuclear solutions now because of that. So I think nuclear also comes back in to the equation because I think it's a great renewable source. And because of all of this stuff, I think grid prices will come down.
Wessex.
Yeah, I think that what we're dealing with right now is an increase in demand at a rate at which the country's not able to keep up with electric cars, with AI, with everything else. I don't see that we're going to have an abundance of supply as a result of drill baby drill, which I really focus on oil when somebody makes that statement, not necessarily coal. But even if they find, I mean, I assume they're running at the coal factories that are available right now. So I don't really see that drilling more coal or mining more coal, excuse me, is going to have a material increase on the supply of electricity. And to further that, Elon said several times that the lack of step-down transformers is a real problem for our country starting now. We're not able to, you got energy creation is one thing, and that's what you and I are talking about. Then you have the transmission of that energy, which is the point Elon's been focusing on, which is without more step-down transformers, even if we were able to create more energy, which I think we're limited, deploying that via high voltage lines long distance is a real problem. So I think we're going to be constrained.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So nobody has mentioned, when I asked back to the question I was asking, which is, do you think Tesla Energy will be more or less profitable in China? No one mentioned competition. How in the world is that possible? Luce?
Yeah, I wanted to say, like, China should be less profitable for two reasons, in my opinion. The first of all is that the volume is half of what is produced in USA when the factory is going to be completed. And the second is, in fact, the fact that China is usually more competitive on these things, and more competitors should arise sooner.
Yeah, I agree. I think due to competitive pressures, Tesla, just like in automotive, Tesla China for energy will be less profitable than in the US. Wessex?
Yeah, I definitely disagree with that. We're at a moment right now where, the world doesn't have an abundance of these mega packs. They're not out there yet. So it's kind of like green pastures for the next few years. We can have quite a few competitors, but the demand around the world is going to be super high. And until we really kind of get to a point where there's
Yeah.
enough supply, the competition won't matter.
You made the same argument for Rivian.
Not me.
Yes, you did.
No, I don't get into Rivian.
Okay.
Or go ahead and tell me what you think I said.
There are so many people who made the same argument that the secular shift towards EVs will ensure that demand will continue above supply for a long time. Even Tesla management said the same thing, 50% growth year after year after year. And that obviously proved wrong. And I think similar will play out in Tesla Energy, and especially in Tesla Energy, because mega packs are mostly battery cells, which Tesla barely started producing on its own. CATL produces, is the market leader globally. And I think the opportunity for differentiation of product is lower for mega packs than in automotive. Wessex?
Yeah, I'll stick to my original point because I don't feel that way about Rivian. But let's just say that everybody on this call right now sold beer. We all make beer at our homes and we sold it. No one else in the world made beer. The demand for beer for the couple hundred of us that are on this call right now would be outrageous. We could make as much beer as you could possibly imagine, and still it would be many years before we could get anywhere near meeting the demand for the world. And that's the same point now. There just aren't a lot of companies yet producing these things. And you're correct to say that China in particular is going to start deploying these in high volume and be a competitor. But there's just so much opportunity that it'll be quite some time before that really factors into.
Okay. Yeah, honestly, I can't take it seriously if you completely ignore competitive pressures when you're talking about profitability.
I addressed it just then.
No, in your original point, you did not. So that tells me you haven't really thought about this deeply.
I laid it out very clearly, Yaman. Come on.
You said ability to produce production scale and less regulation will lead to Tesla Energy be more profitable in China than in US. I said those two factors apply to Tesla Automotive, but that your conclusion is false in the automotive. I said, why do you think? You didn't answer the question. And then I said competitive pressures in China. You also ignore that one as well. So I'm going to move on to machine. Machine. I asked you a few days ago which one of my 8 short positions I should close, and you said MicroStrategy. And that proved to be the most popular one, most profitable one. The stock is down today 15%, down 35% in 4 days after you said I should close it. What do you think now?
Didn't I say to close? Wasn't it yesterday? I said this. When did I say this? Friday?
A couple of days ago.
I mean, I'm not surprised. I said it's extremely volatile. I didn't say it's not going to go down the next few days. I'm not trying to predict the
Are you shorting this stock or no?
Oh, not yet. No.
What are you waiting for?
I would wait for Bitcoin to go significantly higher into 150s up to 200, which is where I think would be the local multi-year maximum. And that would be the time I would short MSTR. I'm trying to risk reward, keep things conservative.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
By the way, I'm on the web browser and I cannot see if my hand is raised. So
it's raised.
It's interesting. I was just thinking before coming in here, seeing some articles about Musk tweeting about Optimus and the cost, like maybe can get it to 20K. And it reminded me of what I was thinking recently about robo-taxis in China, which is for robo-taxis, and I'm not even talking about automotive or energy, is that the competition in China is going to be rough for Tesla and robo-taxis because there's all these players spending all sorts of money, funded partially by the government to deploy robo-taxis.
I got a few questions for you.
Yeah.
Based on what we discussed in this space. Okay. 1, do you think Tesla Energy will be more or less profitable in China versus in US?
Less.
Okay. Why?
There's more competitors. There's less purchasing power for whoever's buying it. And they simply will have to sell them for less money. I mean, definitely the cost to build them should be less, but Tesla's already using Chinese built battery cells.
Okay,
right?
So we agree. All right, second question. What the hell was I going to ask you? Oh, scaling laws. Elias Huskover says they're plateauing. Does this change your view of when Tesla will get to unsupervised and then driverless rides?
Doesn't change my view because I always agreed that at some point they were going to plateau, depending on the domain you're in.
But did you expect it to happen now? So according to some people, OpenAI's next model, Orion, is showing significantly less improvement than GPT-4 because scaling laws are already plateauing, as Elias Escobar also said. Do you think this applies to FSD? Like when you're forecasting FSD progress, do you take that as in an indication?
Yes. Again, I implied that this was going to happen with FSD. I don't know exactly when that relationship starts failing with FSD, but it will fail with every model everywhere at some point because you simply cannot compress things into whatever size you feel like and get the same accuracy. That does not, there's no law for that. There's a law that it will not happen actually eventually. So, and I gave these simple examples before, and I know Meta and others would find it obnoxious, but it is just a thought example, which is, do you actually think you can compress FSD to fit into a simple one single hidden layer neural net and operate with the same accuracy if you just compute long enough? No, it will fail. You will not be able to do that. No matter how much compute you throw at it and training data you throw at it, you will never, ever get to that state. So therefore, if you can't get to that state, you will not have scaling laws extrapolating out forever. So it must break down before that.
Some people argue, like AI Driver, and I think Wes said the same thing, that it's possible that the real world AI models may follow a different path of the scaling laws in the real world may plateau later than for large language models. Do you think that's a possibility?
Yes, it is a possibility. It is definitely something we need to think, that real world models will operate and behave differently than large language models built on words in general. But I would think it would operate in the other direction, where it's actually harder for the real world model to follow scaling laws as well, and as for as long as words. I would just say, even though words are real world as well, I think it's not as potentially messy. But this is becoming more esoteric conversation. I don't have any proof. So, but I do think it's false to assume things will all operate similarly in different domains.
Okay. Optimus training. So a question on Optimus training. Okay, yesterday in AI Amateurs, I asked Robert Scoble, how are they different, the FST training versus Optimus training? Robert said something similar to what Wes said in TSLA yesterday, which is Optimus will have to be trained in 3D versus FST, especially for planning, is being trained on 2D. And I asked Robert, do you think that makes Optimus training harder? And if so, how much harder? Is it an order of magnitude because one more dimension? Is it 3x or 30% or not harder at all? What do you think?
That's a good question. I don't have a straightforward answer. I'd have to think about it. I do see.
What value do you bring to the space? If you can't answer any of my questions,
I'm not going to act overconfident. I would say I do agree that robotic world is true 3D, and FSD, I guess you could consider it not 3D. It's like 2.5D. It's not 2D. You definitely are accounting for depth, and there's definitely X and Y directions. You have X, Y, and Z, but are they like fully fledged? No. So I guess you could argue Optimus has to handle a bit more higher dimensionality. I get that. So I don't really, again, going back to the question of like which is harder to train, like there's so many other factors involved about what's going to affect training and confidence in the accuracy of your model. So for instance, you're not moving as fast, your reaction time doesn't need to be anywhere near as high as it does for FSD. So you can take in more samples while trying to figure out the positioning and kinematics of an object with a robot. And so if that by itself might make the kinematic estimation more confident for Optimus. And so I don't know for sure that it's harder to train for that reason. It's harder to train because you don't have real world data for it, and you'll have to rely a lot on simulation. For that reason, I could see it being harder.
Okay. Before I go to Wes to get his thoughts, Libby Palmer asks, Machine, how was your mom?
My mom's doing well. I have her locked in the basement, far, far away from Yaman and all the other Tesla sad people who have nothing else to do with their life.
All right. Wes, what do you think about what Machine said about Optimus? Training for Optimus might be harder than training FSD.
Yeah, it's interesting that it potentially could be a lot harder. Machine, what's the specific thing that you think will be hardest?
I mean, I think in general, if you had the same amount of data available for Optimus versus FSD, you would be able to train and reach the level error threshold needed to have a product more easily for Optimus than FSD. I think the level of real world training data is going to be much less for Optimus. So you're going to be relying on a lot of simulated data, training a model in simulation, and then deploying it to the robot, and the robot learning how to handle disagreements between what it's expecting from simulation and what's happening in reality. And you're going to build models to do that part that are handling the difference in expectation. And that part, and there's work on that. I've seen companies do work on this, but it remains to be seen how well that goes and how much real world data do you need to get to fine tune these adaptation models, because what happens in simulation is not going to perfectly reflect reality. And so we just need to see how much data is needed to handle those discrepancies and build a robust adaptive framework. And I just, we're definitely going to be more limited with training data, real world data for Optimus right now.
Why do you think that that's limited? And maybe it's because you don't think there's enough bots that have been made. Is that why you're saying that?
I think machine might be having maybe the boss just came.
Yeah, no worries. So my expectation, I'll just while he's doing his thing, I do think there's actually going to be quite a bit of real world data, because they can take that in from the engineers that are basically showing them how to do these tasks. So I would consider this real world data. And then I would also consider, a bot that they've built that can iterate, however many times, a minute on a given task, very quickly. And that can also generate real world data. So I think the idea of like ground truth is actually a lot easier with a bot. So I feel like the set of ground truth is going to be much smaller and easier to gather. Inside of a household, I think that those variables are actually less. So for instance, like when you have a floor that's essentially uneven, the bot just picks its foot up a little higher and walks a little bit slower. Like in a vehicle standpoint, the car has to go a certain speed. It can't go like materially slower, because that kind of, doesn't work in the real world. But inside the house, like that's fine. Like if you're going to fold my clothes and it's going to take you twice as long, great. Or 3 times as long, fine. As long as you're able to continue to do other tasks too, that's great. But, we see a lot less safety critical activity. So I also think that the control loops are going to be a lot less, the safety control loops are going to be a lot less, because, basically the real problem is like the walking scenario. That's the meat, I think the meat of the problem, but all the other ones are not safety critical. So I feel like the training examples are going to be a lot less, and it's going to be, you're not going to have such an extremely high success rate, for those, because they're not safety critical. Whereas everything that you do in a car is safety critical. So there you go. There's my feedback.
Machine.
Yeah, sorry, I missed the first part of that, but for the rest, I basically agree with you. You will need much less data, I think, for these tasks, and they will be much less safety critical. And so they should be able to achieve reasonable results with less data. I just don't know how much less and how much will they be able to generate for a given task in what time frame. Like, is it really just having a few engineers mimic some tasks, like picking up some fries? I always give the fries example at McDonald's and putting it in a container and handing to someone. Like, how many times do you need to collect that and then have it mimic and learn to have a robust representation of that, maybe not that many. Definitely much, much less than you would need for an FSD equivalent. So would it be something you can generate from a few bots following a few engineers around? Maybe. Or do you need to have data from 1,000 different environments and have a few data collection cases for each? And then that becomes a little harder to do with the bot. So I don't know, but I do agree you need much less, and it's not safety critical. The one thing I would say that is going to have to be scaled across all bots, and it's not some simple case-by-case condition, is the balance. The balance is the hardest task, in my opinion, for the bot, to be able to robustly move around, handle things like you said, oh, pick up your leg a little more to watch this step or get over some object. Ultimately, you could try to hard code some of these things for given situations, but this thing's going to have to work in so many different situations. You're not going to be able to hand code those one by one, and you need to have a robust algorithm to do that. Right now, they're still not doing this end to end, and that's the one area I'm still mostly concerned about them scaling it up and having a real solution for. And I don't know how much real world data they're going to need to do that, because we haven't seen it yet.
Machine, how much time do you have? Wes, how much time do you have?
1 minute. 15 minutes for me.
Okay. All right. I gotta say a quick word to our sponsor. We got one sponsor left. We got two sponsors left, actually. Tesla Live is proudly sponsored by Pay More, your trusted destination for buying, selling, trading, and recycling electronics. Join the Pay More revolution today. Visit one of their stores near you or check them out online at paymore.com. Tesla Live is being hosted on a laptop provided by Paymore, which is awesome. Thank you very much, Paymore. Machine?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I think based on the way, you noticed MSTR is down 25% in the last week.
35.
And you thought that's good. However, your Spaces followers are down 50% in the last week. And you're sponsored by Pay More. I think you should be sponsored by Pay Less.
Okay. I know you have to go, but you should join more often.
You can give me a compliment if you want. I'm waiting for that.
For what? For your hair?
A compliment.
What's there to compliment?
Personality.
Well, I need to do something with this MicroStrategy short because it's played out way quicker than I thought. What do you think I should do?
That's what your ex-girlfriend said too about you. Things happened. They ended too quickly. Mm-hmm. And what I told her? I said, cut bait, close the position, leave the brothel, and try again another day.
I mean, with these sponsors leaving, I need to do something to generate money so Tesla Live can continue. It's either shorting these overpriced stocks or stripping. So live in Tesla Live. What do you think? Video. Anyway, Wes has only 10 minutes left. We just wasted his time. Any other questions for Wes? Luce, go ahead.
I had a question for Machine, but Machine is gone. So
ask Wes, he's better.
Do you believe Elon when he says they are not compute constrained?
Wes?
Constrained is an interesting word because obviously, if they had twice the amount of compute, would they be able to go twice as fast? Probably not. But constrained is saying that we can't do the things that we want at all, I think is the definition of that word. And I don't think that they're necessarily blocked by having less compute than they would have if they would have twice the amount. But yeah, they're doing what they can with what they have. Like, I feel like he communicates in a way that doesn't really work for me anymore, and so I just don't try to take what he says at any type of a face value. Proof is in the pudding. Deliver the code and let's evaluate it, and that's where I'm at with the stuff that he says.
Okay, great. Clay?
I have a FSD strategy theory I'd like to share. It would take about 1 to 2 minutes if that would be okay.
Sure, go ahead.
I think Tesla should focus on supervised FSD for the time being and make supervised FSD free forever. Unsupervised FSD, whenever it is ready, makes sense to pay for on a subscription basis, but we're obviously not there yet. And Iman, I know that's something that you've been focused on. First of all, paying for supervised FSD was never the deal with Tesla. It was always thought that you're paying for unsupervised FSD when that's ready. My point here is that supervised FSD is a revolutionary product that has so much potential if just honed correctly. And my opinion is that Tesla has everything it needs today to scale this product and dominate the car industry. My thesis is that 99% of drivers, whether they know it or not, want a driver assistance technology that works 99% of the time, and Tesla is already there. This is real. Having a highly reliable but not perfect driver assist software is revolutionary, and there is significant opportunity that comes with this, which would render non-Tesla cars completely obsolete. Tesla should pursue the following functionality and make it free on all Tesla cars: being able to check text messages, emails, and other apps periodically, doing things like eating food or looking back in the back seat to check on kids, using the Tesla screen to passively watch or select content to choose, and potentially down the road increasing allowable blood alcohol content from say 0.08% to 0.12% as an example, to save money on Ubers and drivers while also increasing safety. So those are just some of the functionality, I think, and I think there's a lot of opportunity in supervised FSD. And I think Tesla should focus on that rather than unsupervised for the time being.
Yeah, thank you. So you're saying, in summary, Tesla should include FSD supervised on all Teslas for free. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, but they are already doing that through these free trials.
Yes, I agree. I think it should be 100% free forever and only charge for unsupervised FSD. And further, I think that Tesla could focus its efforts on regulatory.
So the thing is, by doing free trials for FSD supervised and keeping the price, you have to mute yourself when you're not talking. Thank you. By keeping FSD supervised at $99 a month and doing free trials, that's analogous to keeping the price of the cars, say, at 40,000 and introducing discounts on the new inventory page. So it's essentially the same thing. But psychologically, what would happen if they did what you're suggesting is that they would have a very difficult time increasing the price of FSD supervised when it's perfect, just as they have difficult time increasing prices of vehicles after they lowered it. So it's just a different way of doing, essentially achieving what you're saying, but it's just a different way of doing it. And I don't think they should make FSD supervised free forever. Go ahead.
I think that paying for unsupervised FSD, having a robo taxi that can go out and generate income on its own without you driving, is 100% a different product than a supervised FSD. I don't think it makes sense to charge for supervised FSD, just like I don't think you should have to, and you don't have to pay extra to use the internet when you're on your iPhone. I think it should be included with the car as an additional functionality, and that there's also a lot of things within the supervised FSD product that Tesla could focus on, like increasing the ability to use your phone and just it almost like have it be a autopilot software, an assistant software, so you could get back some of the time that you don't get now while still being engaged on the road.
Well, the difference between autopilot product and FSD supervised is that there are a lot of other substitutes for other vehicles for autopilot. Like they can do lane keep. Maybe maybe not be as good. But if it's a supervised, there is no substitute today. on other vehicles. So if, for example, like what are you going to do, Clay? Let's say they lowered the price of FSD supervised to free today. What are you going to do if FSD supervised becomes perfect in the next, like nearly perfect, 99.99%, but it's not robotaxiable, so it's not unsupervised. And now the take rate of FSD supervised goes to 90%. Not only that, but the demand for Teslas have increased beyond production capacity. What you're going to have to do is increase the price of the cars or increase the price of FSD supervised. And I think you're going to have a difficult time doing that. As opposed to what they're doing right now, which is provide free trials for FSD now for 3 months, which is longer than ever. And at times when you exactly need it, which is seasonal low period and towards the end of the quarter, etc. So they can be a lot more nuanced with it, with a free trial that people on average believe that it's temporary anyway. So they see it as a benefit, a temporary benefit. You see what I mean? I don't know. I like the way they're doing it. Maybe like if, for example, I don't think this is the case. I don't know if this is the case right now, but if they become so constrained by number of edge cases and data collection, that maybe they can take that step. But I bet you before that they would lower it to like $49 a month as opposed to making it free forever for everyone and setting the expectation for future buyers.
Iman, I understand your point, and I appreciate that point. And I believe you're saying that you can achieve the same thing in charging, whether it's through vehicle prices or through subscription. So I take that point and understand it. And in either way, taking a step back, I think that, and I think you're on this same point. I think that you're saying that FSD unsupervised is likely not happening next year, maybe not even the year after. But let's just say we don't know exactly when it's going to come. My point, generally, aside from the pricing, is that I think Tesla could focus a lot on developing the product of unsupervised, supervised, because I think there's a ton of potential there that 99% of drivers, if it's just honed the right way, would really like, and that's increasing the functionality of what you're able to do with your time while you're essentially having your car drive for you. I think is revolutionary.
All right. Any views, Wes, on this topic or ACDC?
For me, it's like it's a trade-off of like, do you need more data? Yes or no. Will you sell more cars if you make it free? Yes or no. That type of thing. It's just a business trade-off. From an engineering standpoint, I don't think they need more data. So I don't think engineers would say, oh yeah, we want you to make it free because then we'll get more data. So I don't think that's happening. So it's more of a business trade-off.
So Wes, but isn't it also true that Elon said one of the limiting factors right now is that it's taking a long time to validate different versions of FSD to see which one is better? And wouldn't that be faster if more people were using FSD for more of their miles?
I don't think so. His statement, while it was not extremely like engineering detailed enough for me to draw a very particular indication of what he was saying, the less amount of less issues are seen over a greater amount of distance. So fine. But those indications of where it fails and it kind of has a much lower reliability, I think is easy to see in the current data set. I think he's more referring to like these highway miles or like these other scenarios and tasks that they do with great reliability now. Whereas where they see the issues are with like, 2-lane roundabouts or with like these really complex intersections or with like, traffic lights that are out, things like that. They need to get to feature complete first. And once they get to feature complete, then they're going to have, another set of issues that they're going to start to focus on. So I don't think there's a lack of data whatsoever at this point. And I, unfortunately, again, have to kind of discount what he says because I would need more detail to understand it from a true engineering level.
Thank you. Clay?
Yeah, so I think that's a great point. And in terms of developing the functionality of supervised FSD further, one of those things could be knowing the reliability and success rate of FSD at each different type of road. So for example, highway miles, you should be able to theoretically look down at your phone for a good amount of time without the nags should be less. It would make sense that they're less than in certain other areas, that the system should self-diagnose and know that it needs to have more attention to the nags and the driver paying attention. So that would just be, in my opinion, another way that the FSD supervised product could be developed further.
All right. Any other questions, comments? ACDC, do you have a position in Tesla today?
I don't. I've been out for about 3 weeks now.
Okay. If you had to take a position, what would you do?
You mean if I had to buy it today?
Now, either whatever position, if somebody put a gun to your face and said, take a position, what would you do?
Well, I told you that I don't short individual stocks, so I mean, but if a gun was to my head, I would short it right now instead of buying it.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. I mean, Wes?
Did you see my hand? Because I don't see it on my UI, but I would ask.
Yeah.
Okay, great. I would ask the question, if you think feature complete is imminent or not, based on Ashok's comment, not necessarily Elon's comment, because I have to unfortunately discount that, but I don't discount Ashok's comments or the postings from Tesla AI. So if feature complete is imminent, I'm just curious, like, what kind of indication is that for you, if any?
Yeah. Who's that to, Wes?
Actually, both of you, because I think you'd both take a short position or have taken a short position.
Yeah, ACDC says he doesn't short stocks. He says if somebody put a gun to his face, like I mentioned, then he would short it here. But he hasn't had a position in stock in the last 3 weeks. ACDC, ACDC, what's your take on that? If you knew that FSD was going to be feature complete in the next few days, would that change your view of the stock?
So it would not, because I think that's what's priced into the stock already. So the only thing left now really is not that if it's going to happen. If you think about it, going back to the 1010 event, that was the biggest display that, hey, we're going to get this. So everybody's seen this and it's priced into the stock. Now they have to prove otherwise, that, okay, how soon can we implement this? Are there any mishaps in the meantime? So those are actually the risks that are not priced into it. And that's why I wouldn't, because I do agree that at some point of time it will be feature complete and we'll get there, but I think it's going to take a longer time. And given the macro environment we're in, I don't think it justifies trading at such a premium ahead of that.
Yeah. And then I would add to that, I think it's essentially today is feature complete, essentially. For all intents and purposes, for most people, it's feature complete. It just doesn't do like 3-point turns or reverse outside of parking lots, but I don't think that matters for 99% of the use cases out there. So, yeah, I don't think it would change my view that much either. Wes?
It's interesting because that's completely opposite from how I feel. I feel like feature complete, there's lacking like severe things that they don't have today. Active school zones, I think, is a huge reason why they haven't started any type of a supervised robotaxi trial. I think feature complete is absolutely necessary to start that trial. And once we get to feature complete, I see that trial can essentially start like very soon after that, once like kind of the basic stability is reached. So anyway, it's a big engineering milestone for me, and I'm super excited about that. Agreed that it could take a while because, you know, it was promised before the end of the month. You know, it was going to be in essentially wide release with V13. So we haven't seen that yet. So my thought is that that's a big deal. So anyway, I feel differently.
Okay, so to be so basically you're saying, let me just understand what you said. When it's future complete, you expect an accelerating increase in miles per critical intervention because they can now focus on March 9s as opposed to getting these features complete. Is that right?
Yeah, so another way to say it is that not every mile, every time the car is in drive and moving, not every one of those is considered going against the critical or necessary interventions. As soon as they hit feature complete, it will. Every single one of those goes against that. And so I think they're going to eliminate a lot. Like, for instance, I have to roughly 8 times a day when I take my kids to school and pick them up. So, like, you know, I assume that a part of that is included, not to mention, you know, several other features, which I can list out, but that's a big deal. And it's a big deal for the code base because now they can run inference at feature complete. Like, that's a huge deal to have all of that in memory.
Okay. And you mentioned school zones, obviously emergency vehicles, like reacting to emergency vehicles, not just identifying them on the screen, and you know, reverse 3-point turns. And what else do you think is needed for feature complete?
The park, unpark, banish, and summon. Those are also key things that are needed. I feel like a lot of these things are going to be done soon, at least according to Ashok. So I'm just waiting for that milestone.
All right, great. And you think these are going to happen with V13? Like,
yeah,
FSD 13 will, when it sees a cop or a fire truck approaching from behind, it's going to pull over?
From what he said, feature complete, that's my definition, is that it handles the entire driving task. Yes.
Yeah, that would be amazing. All right. Anything else, ACDC or Clay?
I just wanted to add to Clay's point. I think that's a very good point. I mean, from a consumer standpoint, Tesla's community standpoint, that would be great. But I think Tesla, from a company standpoint, they've already come so far. They've spent a lot of money in this technology, and I think it's a big lever for them to pull once it's accomplished. So not only could they sell it at the current price, they could actually raise the price back up and get some instant revenue recognition from that. So I don't think they're going to go that route.
All right. And if I remember correctly, Omar was also didn't think that Tesla would have to reduce prices again for FSD. I mean, like I said, FSD free trials essentially do what Clay was trying to do. Okay. ACDC, we have a statement by Drew Soul in YouTube live chat who says, the market is not accounting for FSD's increased take rates. ACDC, do you agree with that statement?
I actually haven't done the number on that yet. I'll have to calculate the take rate because the take rate only goes up once it's fully driverless or fully autonomous. Until then, if you're supervising it, I don't care what V you call it, 13, 14, 15. If you have to monitor it and if it doesn't free up your time that you can use to produce value in some other way, people are not going to pay for it. Some of the geeks here in the Tesla community, we love it. Yes, we'll pay for it. But I've talked to so many people who actually have FSD on their car and they don't use it. So it has to be fully feature complete. And at that point of time, I think it can add to the calculation. But once again, we're not close to that.
Yeah, I agree. Drew Soul says ChatGPT moment has yet to come for Tesla FSD. And ACDC, question for you. What do you assign to Tesla Automotive excluding FSD today, value-wise?
Price, or are you asking me revenue?
Just kind of like, so Tesla's market cap today is $1.1 trillion. what portion of that is, do you think, due to Tesla Automotive minus FSD? And let's say FSD unsupervised. So FSD supervised including there.
I think it's about $100 with all the other businesses without FSD. And if you add the FSD premium to it, I would say it's about 150, maybe extended to 180.
Okay, so you basically agree with Luce. He said that he would buy his shares back if the price dropped to about 180. Interesting that you guys agree independently, because I don't think you were here when he was talking about it.
No, I didn't know that that's what he said.
Yeah. All right. I think that's good enough for today. 2.5 hours. Thank you very much, everybody. And thank you to those who participated. And thank you to those who liked the video on YouTube. Continue to support us on the YouTube channel. Tesla Live is continuing for the foreseeable future, but we'll see where it goes from there. Thank you very much, and I'll chat with you all next time. Take care.